Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our admins, and the message reads like this. Good morning, Brother Nash. How are you? And the entire team, please keep me anonymous. I am a man who is in his 20s and I grew up Ekasi. You know that life in the location is tough, and I was raised by a tough father who died whilst I was still in grade 8. I hate talking about my father because my father, he died as a dog, a very painful death, and in him I saw a hero. He lived a life that was good, and he was a taxi owner, and they had a fight about the routes. There was a new route and it was very busy. It was really busy, and he wanted that route. And you know, in South Africa, this is a very big issue. He was a well-respected man in the community, and he was feared because you know that in the taxi industry, it is more like a jungle. It is survival of the fittest, and he had survived the industry because he had a lot of protection, and that his people around him used to protect him, and he also used to visit a lot of sangomas, and they gave him a lot of stuff that would protect him. I will not say that he was a saint because he used to be involved in a lot of fights, and he would go and fight with his taxi drivers with guns. He was feared in the community, and it was well known that you do not mess up with him. He had a lot of taxis, and as we speak, all the taxis were taken by his relatives and other taxi owners. Brother Nashi, what happened was that one morning I woke up as I was preparing to go to school. My dad left the house and he was driving out of our gate after he had taken the route I spoke about. And I was in the house. I heard gun sounds, and they were followed by tires making those terrifying sounds and hooters. And then there was silence. I rushed out to go and see what exactly was going on, what was happening. And Brother Nashi, I saw my father. He was lying there in a pool of blood. He had been shot driving out, and the neighbors say that they saw guys driving 2 taxis and a Corolla. They shot him 15 bullets, and there was no chance of him making it alive. As a child, I stood there speechless, Brother Nashi, and my life started to move in slow motion. I saw my mother running to the car and opening the door, and she stood there powerless. Yet she couldn't believe that my dad was dead. She held his head and called his name more than 5 times. She then closed my father's eyes, and at that time the street, everyone was in their house. There was so much silence in the street. It's like everything had came to a pause, and then came a scream from my mother. It echoed down the street. It went right into my ear, and I felt as if my eardrum had been pierced by a spear. My other siblings then came running, and I had never felt so much pain in my life. All of this was happening as if it was happening in slow motion, Brother Nashi, and I started seeing things like they were blurred out. I didn't cry. I was heartbroken to the core, and my mouth became so dry. My father had worked so much to be where he was, and yet he had so much enemies. The taxi business is not for the faint-hearted, and that is how my father died. Brother Nashi, friends arrived, then the police came, and because it was a crime scene, he was not removed from the car. The forensic team came and put that yellow tape written crime scene, and up to today, 10 years later, I still have that vision, and it is so vivid. Sometimes I can actually hear the gunshots as if they are ringing in my ears whenever I see a Corolla driving down the road, especially the white ones. I don't feel good at all because it was amongst the cars that those guys, the hitmen, were driving. It traumatizes me a lot. The police came, took the pictures, and my mother went into her bedroom and she took a blanket and slept. It was during South African hot summer, sometime in October. Yet she was in the blankets. I think it was because of the fear that was inside of her. Brother Nashi, that is how my father died, and up to now, it pains me to the core, and that scene is always replayed in my mind. I then grew up with anger. I wanted to seek justice for my dad. The person who was behind all of this, I knew him, and the taxi drivers told me all the information that I needed to know. Brother Nashi, I started to drink beer like a fish, and I dropped out of school. I had a bright future, but I realized that maybe that path was not for me. I had to be also in the taxi industry so that I'll be able to make my father smile and to continue with his legacy. That industry is like a jungle, believe you me. Like I said, and in order for me to continue with his legacy, I had to go to a lot of sangomas so that they will give me muti. There is this muti that when they give you, when someone shoots you, you become bulletproof. And they gave me the muti to strengthen me, since my father had a lot of enemies. But first I had to revenge, and I wanted the revenge so much. The life that they were leading had changed, because like I said above, and some other taxi owners came and took most of the taxis, and we were left with just 2 old Siaya taxis that are used for local routes. One old man from the association spoke to me and told me that all will be well and I should work with him because he was my father's friend, and he was going to mentor me so that I can also become like them. I started leading a gangster life, and at that time I was still in high school and I was just a child, and the taxis were on the local routes bringing in small money, and my mom was the one who was responsible for handling the cash, as she was the spouse of the deceased. I started hanging out with the gangster guys, and that is when I started smoking cannabis, the 3-leaf plant, and I quickly dropped out of school. The 2 local taxis broke down several times, and my mom gave up on them as we had quantums that were taken. This was just a complete waste of money to fix them, and that is how our business died. And yet the anger in me kept on boiling like an active volcano. I wanted to revenge for my father's death, and I had become like a beast. I wanted to fight with those people. I would fight also with people in the tavern. I had turned into a monster. One day, the old man from the taxi association came home to look for me, and he told me that he had an opportunity for me. We met the following day, and he told me that it was about time. This old Madala had information on who had killed my father, how they got away with it, because they are in the taxi industry. We know that these taxi bosses have a way to rule the country, and no one has power over them. By this time, grief and anger had turned me into a bitter man, and I was 19 already. The old man took me and taught me how to fix cars, as he was in the association. He had taxis. He had a resident mechanic who started to teach me how to fix the cars. I was not interested in that, but the old man said, "You are my son, and I want you to learn this, as this is very important." It didn't make any sense to me, but he was a Zulu man, and you know that you can't argue with a Zulu man, especially if you are the age of his children. I learned it the hard way till I was a perfect motor mechanic. Now, after a year, Brother Nashi, the old man then told me to adjust a car that was parked at the offices at the taxi association. I didn't know the owner, and I didn't ask any questions. I was told to tamper with the brakes, and this I was supposed to do as soon as possible, such that when the meeting would be over, the owner wanted to use the car. He told me to loosen the brakes, and from my knowledge, if I was going to loosen the brakes, then they were going to fail within a short period of driving. If this car was being driven, especially at a high speed, they were not going to work. Like I said, I was instructed to do that. Brother Nashi, there was something that happened just when the old man went back into the building as I was busy looking for my tools. It is really strange. You know those people that go around preaching the Bible. there was one woman who was holding that other leaflet, those ones that are borrowing from Jehovah's Witness. One passed through the area that I was. She spoke with me. As she was speaking with me, I was actually bored by her, but I just didn't want to show her that I didn't like what she was trying to give me, those pamphlets that they give to people. But that Jehovah's Witness woman, she is the one who saved this man. By the time that she left me, Brother Nashi, when I wanted to go underneath the car, that was when the old man returned back and he asked me if I had loosened the brakes. I lied to him, and on that day, Brother Nashi, I saw that in this industry, some of the things that are done, they are not okay. Yes, my father was killed, but for me to take another man's life, I just didn't want to do that. And I want to thank God that at least God saved me. What was going to happen if this man was going to die? If I had loosened his brakes, maybe some people were going to die that were innocent. And that woman who gave me that pamphlet, I don't even know her, but on that day, I think that she was used by God. From there on, I returned back home and I told myself that it is high time for me to get another job. I found another job because of my father's connections. But I am grateful. I am now trying to raise my own small family, and I do not want anything to happen to me, to my kids, or to my wife. I am trying to show them another path. But there is one boy of mine who worries me a lot. One day, as he was stumbling around my mom's bedroom, she then found an old photograph. And then the next time when I heard from him, he was playing around the taxi rank with that old Madala. I don't like that man because he might mentor my son so that he can also become like him. And I am trying to fight with this, but my son, he seems to be much interested with what his grandfather, my father, was doing, being a taxi owner. But I do not want him to do that. I try to teach him the other way, but it seems as if I am just fighting a losing battle. He is like my father, who has reincarnated himself in my own son. Your dear listeners, right there, that was a message that was forwarded to me by one of our admins. I am at a loss of words. Strange things do happen in this world. Please let us talk about this issue in the comment section.